The U.S. Pacific Command Chief's visit to India follows allegations over Chinese troops coming into the northern parts of Kashmir. This is the Gilgit-Baltistan region where China has been busy building a highway to link up with Pakistan's rail network to Pakistani ports on the Arabian Sea. So far, Pakistan has denied the reports, claiming that only a humanitarian team from China has come to aid with the flood assistance. So far, India has claimed that at least 1,000 Chinese troops are in the area. Obviously, India, not to mention the U.S., would be concerned over Chinese military moves in this area, and Stratfor is looking to confirm the actual number of troops in this region and also whether there are any indications that China may be using the aid or infrastructure development as cover for a more sustained military presence in the region. Before we look into that, though, it's important to look at the geopolitical motives behind the main stakeholders in this region. So we start with Pakistan. The Pakistanis are always in need of an external power patron. Their preferred patron is, of course, the United States, but the Pakistanis cannot always depend on the U.S., especially when the U.S. has to balance between the Indians and the Pakistanis, which often makes Pakistan feel betrayed in that relationship. So the Pakistanis are always looking for backup from the Chinese and are more than happy to have China reinforce an overland route through Pakistan that could help with military assistance. Then you have China. China and India have been in a very rough diplomatic patch over the past several weeks because China has refused a visa to a senior Indian general on the grounds that his command covers the Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir region. In Kashmir itself, China is looking, of course, to fortify its transit lines for its resource allocation needs. And energy-hungry China needs to protect those transit lines, and the military, of course, plays a big part in that. Also in China, we're seeing a trend where the military is playing a much bigger role in politics. So Chinese naval expansion in the Arabian Sea is, of course, going to drive Indian naval expansion. And so the Chinese would have an interest in keeping India's military focus on Kashmir and on the Sino-Indian border, as well as on Pakistan, instead of focused on building and modernizing the Indian Navy, which may run counter and interference with Chinese naval expansion plans. Finally, you have India. India feels extremely military encircled by China as China is looking to secure these transit routes and expand into the Indian Ocean basin. But they're also looking at the prospect of China fortifying its defense relationship with Pakistan and having a more direct route to military reinforce the Pakistanis. So that's a common ground for the Indians and the U.S. To cooperate on, which is the subject of discussion right now. Likewise, Pakistan is going to be looking for Chinese reinforcement as much as possible as the U.S. is preparing for a policy shift in Afghanistan. The United States, meanwhile, is going to try to keep Pakistan focused on the fight in Afghanistan and off Kashmir and off India, but that's going to be all the more troublesome as these Kashmir tensions escalate more and more. So what we want to look for now is any shifts in the Indian military disposition in the region. We'll also want to keep an eye on any Indian movements toward Tibet. Tibet is a traditional card that India plays whenever it needs to signal to Beijing to back off, and this is certainly a region where India needs to send that signal to the Chinese. As all of these different threat perceptions are being reinforced, the U.S. war effort in Afghanistan is becoming all the more untenable.